From the NewsChannel 5 network, this is Out and About Today. Sponsored by the Tennessee Performing Arts Center.
Good evening and welcome to Out and About Today. I'm Pam Wheeler. We've got a buzzworthy show for you tonight in the Entertainment Outlook. Chuck will take a look back at some queer cinema milestones, and we will all have some opinions on them. But first, we are going to kick off the show with some hot topics. Brent Meredith and Chuck Long are here via Zoom because we're still not all in the studio together, but that'll happen at some point. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
So it's so good to see you, even via Zoom. I know we're going to be back doing stuff soon, and we're going to talk about that. I've picked a few hot topics, some light, as I like to do, and some a little heavier. The first one falls under the light category. First, I have to ask you, are you guys fans of The Bachelor? No.
I don't think I've ever watched it, although I have read the recaps that Nancy Floyd does over for The Scene, and those are about the best part of it.
Well, I'm not a big fan. I think my mom used to watch it, so I'm familiar. We're all familiar with it. And Colton Underwood, one of the Bachelors, he recently came out as gay. And Lance Bass, in a podcast, had a comment that maybe he's monetizing because he's about to do a Netflix or another show. What got me thinking about what I want to talk to you guys about is, does it ever bother you that a celeb comes out late after playing the straight role however long? Chuck, I'll start with you because you're our entertainment guru. Does it ever bother you? Yes.
And the reason that it bothers me is it's kind of like it's this whole plan of how you're going to come out. And when Lance Bass talked about monetizing, it's like Colton's already been doing a Netflix filming a series for several weeks before he came out. So it was like his handlers, all management got together and they said, how can we make this the biggest thing? So we're not just going to have you coming out as Bachelor, but you're going to film a Netflix series about your coming out, and then we're going to do an exclusive interview with Robin Roberts, put it on all their platforms, and then you come out. So to me, it just, I don't know, it wasn't as authentic as it might have been. I mean, good for him that he came out. That's great, but it's just the way that he put it all together to come out just kind of bothered me a little bit.
I could see that.
Yeah, me too, Chuck.
Yeah, go ahead, speak to it, Brent.
I was just saying, I tend to agree with you a little bit, Chuck. It does seem a little, disingenuous in a way. We've talked before about how people will sort of come out or have a relationship or something that just seems to be sort of a PR stunt, even if they, it's maybe legit who they are, but it kind of comes at a time when they need a boost in their ratings or they've got a new show. And it just almost seems like, well, to those of us who have come out or struggled to come out or come out, in a different way, and again, each person has their own journey, but we didn't sit down and think, well, how can I best monetize my coming out by telling people in my family? Or how can I, plan the press release just right so that I get the most amount of attention? And I think for maybe some of our straight allies or straight friends, it also looks a little disingenuous, like you were holding on to this just long enough to make it a big deal. So it almost feels like, it makes it a little bit harder, I think, sometimes to explain to folks, this isn't something we just decide to do or to announce. It's who we are. So it does take a little bit away from that. And it reminded me a little bit of Sean Hayes and, how he didn't come out for the longest time, playing an extremely gay character on Will and Grace for years, and then apologized after he came out. So even amongst the folks in the industry, I think that some of them also realize that, it's not the best way, obviously, to come out to sort of turn it into a media spectacle.
I know you guys have
and another thing that I like.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that Lance Bass said that I really agreed with when he was talking on his podcast. He said one of his recommendations for Colton would be to sit back, listen, and learn. Because when you come out and you're, on national television talking about it, I mean, he's just now experiencing what it's like to come out and be gay. And so a lot of times, though, the people asking him the questions, he hasn't had time to experience it at all yet. I mean, he said he hasn't even had a relationship. So to me, this is not the time that he should be giving advice. And not that he's giving a lot of advice, but it's the time that, as Lance said, sit back, listen, and learn.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, there is some bit of, I will give him some credit for at least, again, it's one more visible person, it's the conversation, but it does just seem very much I don't know, it just seems kind of stunty and kind of takes away some of the credibility in my mind of the way in which it's done. Like you said, if he hasn't even lived his life as a gay person really yet, then, what is there to talk about other than, okay, he's out. Okay, that's great. Let's see what he does with that besides make money off of it.
And you know what? We are going to see what he does with it because we're going to be watching him. And then maybe we'll come back and talk and say, you know what? He did watch and learn, and now he's doing great work in this arena or whatever. It'll be interesting to see. Maybe he's already learned a few lessons. Let's switch gears to politics. I feel like we have a couple different things going on, right? So Biden-Harris, first 100 days, there's been a lot of wins. And I'm just going to read a little bit. When I think back of 4 years ago, the conversations we're having, they're so different now. There have been great progress for our community. Application of inclusive anti-discrimination protections across the federal government, a repeal of the transgender military ban, appointment of gay high-ranking officials. It feels good. We're going to talk about the other side in the states, but where are your mind and hearts right now, a number of months into this new administration? Brent?
Who first? Oh, sure, I'll go first. Well, they're both happy and they're both in it. Let me just start by saying that, I can process what's happening. I can be happy about it. I feel like there's hope again for us and for others like us. But I still have this sort of gnawing anxiety over, like, when's the other shoe going to drop? What's going to happen, And then, of course, we see the sort of backlash, if you will, to electing the people that have been elected is now all of this stuff on a state level. So it's even when you feel like you've made victories, you're still sort of just shell-shocked as to what may or may not come next. And how is it going to be perceived by everybody else, the people that maybe voted for Biden simply because they didn't want to vote for Trump. So is it going to be, them still supporting what we're doing? So it's kind of a mixed bag of emotions, but at the end of the day, I sleep a lot better and I feel like hope is back.
What about you, Chuck?
Yeah, I agree. And it was, to me, it was very obvious from day one. I mean, we knew that Biden and Harris, had certainly, supported the gay community during the campaign and even before then. But from day one, the moves that they made, the things that they overturned, the things that they instigated, it was just very obvious that they weren't just, that wasn't just campaign rhetoric, that they were definitely behind the gay community. And I'm like Brent, I can sleep much better now.
And I'm with
totally different conversation than we were having in this buzz about 4 years ago.
I know, that's right. But the other side of it, too, and I listen to I get small doses of conservative talk radio on my way in and out to downtown. And the reality, though, are the state legislatures, there have been 220 anti-LGBTQ bills under consideration, a record 110 of these specifically aimed at transgendered people. Right here in Tennessee, there's been 15 anti-LGBTQ. We call it the slate of hate. It's so tiresome. And I know you all saw this news, and I just want to talk about it. The first trans billionaire in the world, calls this state her home. I don't know, did you all see this in her remarks against the slate of hate? It's remarkable, money talks. So, Brent, give us your thoughts when you saw this. Her remarks, one of the things I'm just going to read, as a transgender woman, these unnecessary and hurtful laws are personal to me. Brent?
Well, I think that says it all right there. It's a personal approach. And so she is actually the heiress to the Hyatt Hotels fortune, clearly has been in the state for a long time. There's been other legislation before, but this is kind of hit very close to home for her. And sometimes that's what it takes. So it is sort of a mixed message for me. It's like, you've been here, you've seen what's happened to date. It really has to come to roost right at your front door for it to be really something that you're going to threaten. Now, that said, great, better late than never, right? But it does sort of take away a little bit, I think, of some of the seriousness of it. And it's still just a threat. We don't know that it's actually going to happen. Similar to some of the businesses that sign, some of the folks that have signed the letters and said this is a bad thing, they're still donating to candidates. They're still, doing what they do. So, I mean, until there's some actual action there, I'm not inclined to necessarily think that it's necessarily good or bad, but I am glad that there at least is a voice that strong to be able to come back at these bills, like money talks. We know that. And I mean, this is a lot of money talking right now.
Chuck, I want to hear from you.
Well, and one of the things that she said was, if these bills do go through, she would definitely consider leaving, and she's going to leave and take the business with her. As you mentioned also, Nissan, Amazon, Dell, Pilot, Warner Music Group, they're against the bills, and they would also consider moving out. So, I mean, we're getting some major corporations who are going to move and leave this state. And one of the things that concerns me the most, I don't know if you have time right now, Pam, but the Daily Wire, which is a big conservative media group, it's moved here from its headquarters in California. So now they're located in Nashville with their very loud conservative voice. Educational Media Foundation employs 500 people. Its assets include K-Love and Air One radio networks, film, publishing, and podcast divisions. They're moving here. So it's really starting to worry me that, especially it's getting closer and closer to Nashville. We have such a red state to begin with, that if these really conservative media groups start making a big push to move here, it's going to start encroaching on, the diversity that Nashville offers. And that really, really scares me.
That seems to me like a concerted effort, Chuck. I mean, we've seen many of them move here in the last few years, and none of that is by accident.
That's right. And we do have to take a break. I hate to cut this off because we could talk a little bit longer, but we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we have another topic to discuss. Stay with us.